In this video, you're gonna see me clearly bite off way more than I can chew as I fail to summit Mount Whiteface in what had been at that point my first ever winter hike. This was due to a lack of experience, lack of technical ability, and clearly the lack of the proper gear to get the job done. I certainly learned a lot. I hope you do too, and I hope you enjoy this hike.
Holy moly.
So yeah, that's basically where my footage just ends. I stopped taking any more footage because the overwhelming desire to summit that mountain before it got dark, it just became unbearable. And I knew if I would continue filming, it would just delay my approach up to the summit and I might not get there before the sun went down. So I stopped recording all my footage, and just that whole summit or bust mentality really took hold of me, and I just was in a mad dash to make that summit. I feel like it was a slight taste of the feeling that Casey Neistat described in his video that I'm gonna link up here. It's kind of a little reckless. Luckily for me, it is nowhere near to the extent in his video that he experienced. I was in no grave danger. I just wanted to get up there before the sun went down and there'd be nothing to shoot. And I wasn't cold, I wasn't feeling bad, so there was nothing like that. But still, it's crazy the things that your mind plays on you when you just need to get to that summit so that you don't quote unquote fail getting there. But at the end of the day, I did decide to be humble, take my humble pie, not make it to the summit, and decide to head down before it got dark so I could live to hike another day. And I hope everyone would be able to make that same choice as well. But yes, a lot of lessons were learned that day, and I'll be going through a lot of them as we get to the guide. Welcome back. Kind of bit off more than I could chew with that one, didn't I? That was me failing to summit Mount Whiteface, part of the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footer hiking list, via the Blueberry Ledge Trail, which is an elective on the terrifying 25 hiking list. Mount Whiteface is 4,020 feet tall, and the trail that I took would be around 7.2 miles round trip out and back. So yeah, I think the big problem I had is that I just basically underestimated this mountain. It was fourth from the bottom of the New Hampshire 48, so I didn't really take it as seriously as I maybe should have, and that it wasn't a main trail on the terrifying 25, it was just an elective trail. So I was like, if it was really that scary, it would have been on the main list. And then on top of that, I maybe didn't have the exact equipment that I should have had. Maybe I should have had some snowshoes hiking in that virgin snow. It was a little hairy. Let's just go get to the trail guide. So this one starts off kind of interesting. The parking lot for the trail is actually like almost a mile away from the actual trailhead. You park and then you actually have to walk down the road, cross a little stream bridge, and walk down this private road a little bit farther till we find the actual trailhead for the Blueberry Ledge Trail. They don't allow any parking right at the head of the trail. That is a private road and your car will get towed. But once you actually start the trail, you might begin to underestimate a little bit. It starts off rather flat and kind of continuous. It's not that steep to start with, and it is rather flat for the good first mile. And then after a little bit of a while, you start to see a hill in the distance, and it becomes moderate steepness, and you begin to head up that hill. It was at this point in the hike that I put on my Microspikes. It was steep enough that with the snow, it was a little bit slippery, so I needed that extra little bit of traction. And it continues at this moderate level of steepness all the way to the Blueberry Ledge Cutoff Trail Juncture. From here, it kind of flattens out a little bit again, and then continues on a little bit steeper as you approach what I like to call the faux summit. And you're like, oh, did I get to the top? No, you can kind of see the rest of Mount Whiteface in the background as you begin to walk along that ledge. It's after you get to the top of this faux, so I'm gonna continue along the ridge and pass the sign for the latest trail juncture that it becomes remarkably steep. This is the portion of the trail that is considered part of the terrifying 25 elective list. For good reason. There is a good bit of rock scrambling. It gets remarkably steep and very technical. Climbing on ledges is especially difficult when those ledges are covered in ice and hidden by snowdrift, so it was very difficult for me to see where it was going, which added greatly to the difficult time that I had and was directly responsible for my lack of ability to summit the mountain at this time of year. But of course, it's once you get to this point that you begin to finally start getting some views on the trail. Up until this point, you had been hidden in the trees the entire time. There was no leaves on the trees, so I could kind of get views through the trees as I went, but definitely if you're hiking this in the summer, you will not start to get any good, amazing views until you get to this steepest, most technical portion of the trail. So unfortunately, did not make it all the way to the summit. I don't exactly know what it looks like. I got so freaking close. You can see in the map that I'm showing here. I was basically there, but that last ledge covered in the snow drifts, it was just too technical. I did not feel safe. It was getting very late in the day. By this point, it was 3:30. I had to get back down this mountain before it got dark. It was beyond my technical ability in conditions that I was not used to, and it was too late in the day. I had to be humble and just accept defeat and be safe, turn around, and I hope everyone would also be able to make that sort of hard decision when you are confronted with it. At the end of the day, that is what's most important. if you are super intrigued to check out the trail, I included that link to that custom all trails map that I always love making in that description, as well as links to all the gear that I used to make this video possible. So some notes for this trail. The trail is marked by blue blazes, which I found rather inconsistent. They were sometimes there, they were sometimes not. Luckily, I was able to follow the trail easy enough. I don't know how obvious it is when there's not snow on the ground. It was kind of hard to follow for me with the snow on the ground. It might be a little bit easier in the summertime, but I found the blazes rather inconsistent, and they could be a little bit more consistent, but maybe I was missing some because they were covered up by snow-covered trees. I am not sure. This trail, I don't know what it's like in the summer, but it was very unbusy. I was basically one of 2 people on the mountain the entire day that I went. It is a more difficult one, so that might reduce the amount of traffic that is on this mountain, but in the summertime that might be different, and I cannot speak to that. And of course, I really need to hammer it home again, 3rd time's the charm. Know your abilities. If you're hiking this in the winter, heed those warnings. A lot of the things that I read beforehand said, hey, this might not be the best trail to do if you're unfamiliar with the conditions because it gets a little tricky near the top. They were correct. The ice, the snow drifts, it was beyond my abilities. I did not have the proper gear. You're gonna do this hike in the winter, especially if it's virgin snow, you definitely need your snowshoes. Microspikes are a must. Luckily I had those, and possibly even trail poles, all sorts of things. I could have used some better gear to more successfully and maybe actually summit this mountain, but all a learning opportunity. It is good that it turned out the way it did, because hiking in the White Mountains is dangerous at any time of year, especially dangerous in the winter. So I would highly not recommend that you did what I did. It is rather dangerous. It is good that it was a perfect weather day. I knew that going in, so that's why I was confident that I could push my limits on this hike. But by all means, if you're hiking solo in the winter in fresh powder, take a little bit more precautions. Oh yes, and one more reminder. The parking lot is not at the trailhead, so you also need to factor in that little bit of extra walking that you need to do to get from the parking lot to the trailhead, because you cannot park right at the trailhead, and that is about almost a mile of extra walking that you need to do one way. Yeah, difficulty ranking for this trail. Yeah, very clearly uphill both ways if you're doing it in the winter. I wouldn't even recommend that you do it in the winter, but if it was the summertime, maybe I would bump it down to a hike and a half, but I'm not exactly sure. That remains to be seen. I'll have to try this again in the summer when I can actually summit this mountain to get a true difficulty ranking in normal conditions. But if you're hiking in the winter, 100% uphill both ways, please watch out. So would I recommend this trail? Yeah, so yeah, clearly I would not recommend that people do this in the winter unless you're truly prepared and you're really working on tackling. I think there's a version of the New Hampshire 48 hiking list where you get a patch if you do them all in the winter time. Otherwise, I would not recommend you do this trail in the winter time. I bit off more than I could chew, and I wouldn't call myself an above average hiker, but I'm clearly not like too casual, and I have some abilities, but this one was beyond my abilities. Watch out for that. The jury's out if I would recommend it in the summer. It did take a while before I was starting to get any views, and it felt very long, and there was that extra walking from the parking lot to the trailhead. So yeah, the jury's out for me on the summertime, but definitely I would not recommend hiking this in the winter unless you want to end up like me. Hey, that was just my opinion. What did you think? Did I thoroughly scare you away from checking out this trail in the winter? Or are you super intrigued now because you think you could summon it when I couldn't? Let me know what you thought in those comments down below, as well as, hey, do you have any suggestions for other trails that I should check out in the winter that maybe I could actually summit them? Whew. Wow. In the end, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Even better, hit that bell to turn on notifications so that you'd never miss another one of my videos. That's it for me though. I'll catch you in the next one. I might be the first one since the new snowfall. How's that song go? Walking into Winter Wonderland? I think I finally know what they mean. Come on. You got this. Ah, there we go. Such fluffy snow. Not good for making snowmen, FYI. The snow is making it so utterly quiet here. It is a little unnerving. I reckon I'll run into Mr. Tumnus in the lamppost any moment now. This really is my first ever winter hike, and I am a little bit nervous. Ugh. I was really nervous for today. Borderline scared. So far, so good. This is getting old. This is getting old. Long time ago it was getting old. Not sure I'm a fan of freaking
winter hiking. Can you tell that the magic of winter has worn off by this point? Terrifying 25 is freaking right.